Hi, Red Buffalo. Erin's back. I know that we've been talking a lot about coffee and latte art, so now let's talk about our next favorite part about Red Buffalo, which is our wonderful tea selection. So let's talk a little bit about what tea is. Tea is actually a specific species of plant called Camellia sinensis. It has typically grown in a warm, tropical, lower elevation climate, and it's been exported over the ages. So it's specifically Camellia sinensis. If it doesn't have that in it, it's not really tea. So often when we talk about something as peppermint tea or a chamomile tea, very often it's just peppermint leaves, it's just chamomile flowers, and so it's not a technical tea. Although we still get away with calling it that. If you tune into our conversation about chai, you know that the word tea and chai just gets used very loosely over time. So you might ask me, Erin, what's the difference between all these teas you have in front of me? I don't understand it. Well, we're gonna equate this to an apple. All right, you ready? Let's start with this white tea. This white tea is your fresh apple. It's just been picked. Maybe even a little underripe. It's gonna be super tart. This white tea, it's called white mostly because if you see on this leaf right here, it's kind of white and fuzzy. It's still kind of got the early stages of that bloom going on. So this is our white peony tea right here. Okay, and then you get that apple. It's actually ripe now. It's happy off the tree. This is your green tea. This is our organic sencha. Okay, so this is your take a nice fresh bite out of that apple. It's a nice ripe apple. Moving on down the line, this is your oolong. Now, oolongs have the widest variety, perhaps, of color. They're liqueur when you steep them. This is a Wu Yi oolong right here. Oolong teas are like if you took a bite of your apple and you just let it sit for a little bit and it starts to kind of go a little brown around the edges, that's your oxidizing. We talked about this with your coffee earlier, about why you want to grind fresh because you have your larger particles. This here is a Wu Yi oolong, so this is going to be a little bit of a greener oolong. We have a Formosa oolong from what was known as the British Isle of Formosa, what we now call Taiwan, and that brews a little bit darker in the core, kind of has a darker, like closer to a black, and it's kind of a red color. We'll move on down the line. This is a black tea. This is our Ceylon, our organic Ceylon tea. So a black tea is, okay, you've taken a bite of your apple, you set it down, and now it's just gonna sit there and kind of just, I don't wanna say decompose or rot, but it's really just gonna kind of shrivel. It's just shriveled apple, which also means it gets a little sweet. Darjeeling's a really fun one, Ceylon's a really fun one. When you add a little sugar to them, they don't just become sweeter, they change in their taste profile. So this is your shriveled apple. Again, it's oxidized a little bit more. You might ask what comes next after you have a black tea, and that's what's called pu'er. So pu'er is from Western China. It really it's a fermented tea. So it's your black tea, but now you've made your apple, it is shriveled, and now it's become cider. Because what they did is they used to package black tea on the back of kind of their donkeys or whatever, their oxen, on their journeys out west. And what they would do is those teas would ferment while they were on the back of the carrying vessel, and then they would kind of ferment, and they found that was a really good taste. After that, you can get into various types of blends. So this is a black tea with raspberries in it. So a lot of our really popular teas, we have this wild blueberry green tea, has blueberries in it. It's got senna leaves in it. It's got green tea. And these are all great teas. It's all great blends to get those fruit flavors in them. People often think too that maybe your white teas and your green teas have less caffeine than your oolongs, blacks, or pu'ers. But that's not entirely true because this is all still Camellia sinensis. Now, as you've oxidized it, you have degraded your caffeine molecule a little bit as it has been exposed to heat, because that is also how you get the difference here, is how long that they've been. Kind of imagine a big wok over fire and your tea leaves are in your wok and you're shaking your wok. That's what's happening to get your difference between white, which hasn't had any heat exposed, green has a little, it's been rolled in it, more like a basket than a wok, and then you get darker profiling, more heat. So your caffeine has degraded a little bit along the way, but really what's making less caffeine is when you've mixed it with other stuff. So proportionally, there is less Camellia sinensis in a fruit blend than there would be in a straight tea. Thank you all for tuning in to our intro to tea. Tune in next time where we'll add a little bit more info to the pot.